What's going on, internet? Nick from Sick Till Death here. In this video, we are going to be reviewing Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse. It leaked a few months ago, but it's now available to the public via purchase on Amazon, all those other good places. It's also the stat blocks and new playable races are in D&D Beyond. So I thought I'd take some time to go over everything. I have some opinions as to the changes that they made, and I'll basically give you the rundown of my thoughts on it and what I'm planning on doing with or without the content as we move forward. So to begin, this is basically going to be I don't want to say new, because it's going to basically replace a lot of the stat blocks, playable races. It's consolidating a lot of things into one place, which is awesome. And it's basically going to be a 3-part, along with Xanathar's and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So this is going to replace some of those creatures that's in Volos, Tome of Foes, Into the Abyss. There's a bunch of publications that they're going to try to basically consolidate into one space. So first and foremost, I want to get into what I like about it, because there are a few things that I don't like, but for the most part, I mean, I really do think it's a great step forward for certain reasons. I purchased it, I pre-ordered it, I figured I'd give it a chance. I looked through it today and then I sent it back via Amazon returns, because it's not really for me. If I'm gonna get any of the creatures in the stat blocks, any of the stat blocks, I'll buy them on D&D Beyond so I can use them digitally. But and also with the playable races, I'm probably going to purchase everything via D&D Beyond. I'm trying to veer away from having so many books, because I already have too many. But with that said, consolidating everything into one place was a great idea. I think this is awesome moving forward. It does kind of provide, or give some sort of issue with the legacy version of things that are now on D&D Beyond. So if you bought things from Xanathar's, or if you bought things from Volos that are in this publication, you'll see a little legacy tab next to those creatures in D&D Beyond, and you'll have the old stat blocks available, and then if you purchase the new stuff, you'll also have the new stat block available. So we'll get into the differences moving forward, but I think consolidating everything was a great idea. They're trying to make it more inclusive, more easily playable by everyone, and this is the first step in doing that, and I think it's a great idea. With that idea in mind, simplifying the game for newer players is also a great idea. It more or less makes DMing a kind of a welcoming experience. It simplifies combat in ways, and as I said, we'll get into that as well. But I think this is going to open up DMing, running games for lesser experienced players a lot more, and I think that's also a great thing. On top of that, I really love the changes that they made to the playable races, and I guess we can kind of get into it here. I have the PDF open. Okay, so basically they pretty much buffed almost all the playable races. Some of them they didn't really touch. I believe Aarakocra's got a buff in flight speed. I know the Azamar got a bit of a, not a buff, but the one thing I didn't like with the changes, and I overall I do like the changes to the playable races. I didn't like the removal of the sub races. And I understand why they did that. But at the same time, and this only really stands out to me for the Fallen Aasimar, because I feel like the Fallen Aasimar gave cool little story or backstory elements where you could, if you were a Fallen Aasimar, you could kind of redeem yourself. In our game, our rogue Konrad was partial, he was like a half-blood basically, and his people, the Andari, were a race of Fallen Aasimar, and he completed a trial, and that restored his people. So not only did he get the Radiant Soul ability, but everyone with his lineage got the Radiant Soul ability. So I feel like they missed the mark on that regard, but otherwise I'm cool with the removal of sub races. I really do get why they did it. But the big thing that I think stood out to me was all the goblinoids getting Fey ancestry, which is pretty cool, because if you dig deep into the lore, before they became goblins, bugbears, hobgoblins, and the like, they were from the Fae, and they kind of got cursed by Moglabiet. I think that's his name. It's hard to pronounce, but so I actually like that. I didn't at first because the old school D&D purist in me wanted to be stupid, but I turned over a new leaf. I do get it, and I like it. The other thing that they did, I believe, the big thing that stood out to me was there was a change to the Eldarin, I believe. I wasn't too familiar with it to begin with, but and then on top of that, they did some things, I believe, to the Air Genasi, so they added some spells. I think they also increased the speeds on almost all the races. I think Bugbear got an additional like sneak attack. So all in all, I enjoy what they did. So the Goliath got more than 1 stone's endurance per rest, which is amazing. I don't know why that wasn't a thing. And then the other thing that really stood out to me, which makes absolute sense, and I really wanted to know why it wasn't like that from the beginning, is orcs got relentless endurance, which, if you're familiar with half orcs, they already got it, so why wouldn't a full-blood orc get relentless endurance? So all in all, I am thrilled by what they did with the playable races. I'm definitely going to purchase these in D&D Beyond, because I think having all that stuff updated is just going to make character creation, NPCs, even new players. I'm planning on having some guests join our game, some of our friends that don't always play D&D but that are interested, so I'm definitely going to purchase that. Now we get to the beasties. So, and before we actually get to the bestiary, there were some changes in the lore. As I stated with the goblins, that was one of them, but there were a couple other things. It's also they're kind of bringing in the idea of a multiverse, so it's not just, Faerun, Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, Dragonlance. They kind of all can coincide, coexist, parallel to one another. And the same could be said for any world that your DM, that you create as a DM, or myself. Like, I have the world of Haven, so I think they did that to kind of make it a little more level of a playing field, if you will. So in terms of lore and things like that. Otherwise, I'm not too bothered or impartial to the lore, because I have so much lore built into my world that it doesn't really affect me that much. I may take bits and pieces here and there that I read throughout, like some of the bestiary or the playable races, but otherwise I'm not too enamored by it. So that was what I like kind of what I didn't really get bothered by. Now to what and I don't want to say I don't like, but there's a few things here, and I guess we'll go in alphabetical order. Okay, so my apologies. You're going to see the camera shifting in various places to kind of fit where I need it to go so you guys can see everything that needs to be seen in these situations, right? So, the Alhoon. First and foremost, well, what to say about the Alhoon? So before we even get into exact specifics about various creatures and the like, they changed some things within spellcasting. They removed innate spellcasting. So if you look to your right, that's the old stat block. So that has innate spellcasting at the bottom, and then it has its learned magics, I guess you could call it. I get why they did it, as I've been saying. They're trying to simplify the game. I won't lie, there'll be times where I don't want to say overwhelmed, but I have too many choices as a DM as in terms of what spell I want to use, things like that, right? So I do get the idea of simplifying things. What I don't agree with, though, is the old stat block had one attack, one Chilling Grasp attack, if you were to do that. Now you get a multi, so you could attack twice with Chilling Grasp, attack twice with Arcane Bolt, or you could do one Mind Blast, right? Or you could cast a spell. And the issue I have is it's two extremes. You went from having too many options here, way too many options, right? Like, to having barely any options. And I get it. The at-will ones are ones that probably won't be used during battle, right? Some of them are cantrips, some of them are first levels, so they figured make them at-will, right? But one a day, Dominate Monster, Globe of Invulnerability, Invisibility, Modify Memory, Plane Shift, Wall of Force, right? So you have a 6th, a 7th, I believe that Wall of Force is a 7th, Globe is a 5th, I think, and so is Dominate Monster. So you went from having 1 6th level, 2 5th levels, 3 4th levels, 3 3rd levels, to being able to cast 1 2 3 4 5 6 spells on the day, and then a bunch at will. In addition, you have this negate spell ability here. And it's like a counterspell, but it's not, because you can only counter, and I say that word loosely, a 3rd level or lower. Whereas if you are fighting, if you have a bunch of like 11th, 12th level characters fighting this Alhoon, they're going to be doling out 6 levels. So why shouldn't he be able to cast a 6th level counterspell if he wanted? I just feel like it makes it underwhelming. They also took away fly and replaced it with a 15-foot fly speed, which is ass. Horrible. I'd probably rather stay on my feet if I'm the Alhoon. So there's that. I think my biggest problem with the changes that they made to spellcasting is you went from way too many options to barely any options. And it makes it so if I'm running this new Alhoon stat block, I'm going to be spamming Chilling Grasp and Arcane Bolt. That's about it. And there is less risk reward. I mean, I guess there's more risk reward for like melee PCs that want to get into combat with the Alhoon, whereas he's going to try to keep his distance from those because they probably hit hard. But now, you know, he deals 14 and he regains 14 hit points. So I see the balance that they're trying to achieve, but I just think that they made it so you're kind of limited in your options, right? That's about it, I guess. You're not always going to get the Mind Blast because it's a 5 or a 6. Every time I have one of these abilities, I never roll a 5 or a 6. I always roll shit, and I never get that charge back. So that's neither here nor there. That's just my shit rolls. But that's the Alhoon. I don't want to dwell too much on these guys. So next is the Archdruid. The Archdruid's a different story. Because at the end of the day, your PCs, your players, they're probably not going to fight an Archdruid per se. This is probably more like an NPC. Which, if that's the case, why not just create an NPC in your character builder, whatever platform you use, and you could negate any of this, although I guess this makes it easier to run instead of having to pick through a list of spells. So, as I've been saying, I know why they're doing this. Maybe I'll come around to it like I did with the Goblins getting Fey Ancestry, but it's going to take a minute for this, for me. So, the big changes that they made. And the other thing, I guess, that I don't agree with is that a druid in the player's handbook, no matter what level, never gets a multi-attack with a staff. So that's another thing. Also, one thing that I want you to keep in mind, we'll get to this at the tail end of this video here. Wildfire. It says ranged spell attack. The Alhoon had an ability called Arcane Bolt, which was also a spell attack. Ranged spell attack, right? Keep that in mind. So, I mean, other than the increasing hit points, the increased strength, the multi-attack, so he hits harder, the wildfire. Once again, though, the spellcasting has been dumbed down, and I shouldn't use that word, but it has been simplified. Now, Beast Sense, Entangle, Speak with Animals, at will, I'm all for it. They're low-level spells. You're probably not going to use it 4 times a day anyway, right? So that's fine. Animal Messenger, Dominate Beast, Fairy Fire, Tree Stride. 3 times a day. I guess I'm okay with that. I'll tell you what, though. I haven't seen a druid cast Dominate Beast ever. So that's just me. Fairy Fire is very situational. If you don't have anything that's invisible, sure, it still will give advantage on anything that fails the saving throw and is in that cube, but it's really meant to kind of combat invisibility, right? So it's neither here nor there. Those are 5th level spells. No, Tree Stride is a 5th level. Dominate Beast is a 4th. So you see where I'm getting at here. No Conjure Animals. I would say swap that out with Dominate Beast, and I'm happy, I think. Also, Animal Messenger. I don't ever think that spell has been brought up by any druid that I've ever known. So I'm babysitting my sister and brother-in-law's dog, so if you hear him in the background, That's what's going on right there. But getting back on track, we need conjure animals. There's no water breathing, no stone skin, which is a big thing for most druids that I've encountered. Mass cure wounds once a day, kind of underwhelming. Commune with nature. Yeah, I could see that. But here's the thing. The word arch implies that this guy is level 18 or higher. It's just common knowledge. He doesn't even have a 7th level. He doesn't have a 6th level spell. That's no bueno, in my opinion. That's just me. But I get it. And I guess I didn't even mention this with the Alhoon. They kept the challenge ratings the same. You know, they're 12 and 12. I don't see it. I feel like this Archdruid would be like a 10 because he doesn't have those higher level spells. Sure, he deals more damage, average damage per round if he hits with the wildfire twice. Also, and this goes against all the rules as written, you know, the stickler for rules that I am, I don't like this at all. The Archdruid makes 3 staff or wildfire attacks. It can replace 1 attack with the use of spell casting. That's just not how it works. That's not how it works, fam. You either cast a spell or you attack. You can't even cast 2 spells in a turn unless one is a bonus action and or cantrip, vice versa, whatever the case may be. You get what I'm saying? So, I don't like that. But I don't want to dwell too much more on this. You clearly see my disdain. Just give him a 6th or a 7th as a once per day as well, I think. And take out Dominate Beast and maybe replace it with Conjure Animals. I guess. I don't know. I don't know anymore at this point. This is why I don't work for Wizards of the Coast, but okay. On to the next one. And this one is the Drow Mom. Oh. Before we get into the next creature, stat block, whatever, I do love the fact that they put all of these notable fiends and the like in here. I think it's just an awesome addition. I know you can go and purchase all the separate books, but this really gives it that multiverse flavor because they have all the different fiend, archdevils, archdemons, whatever they're called. So yeah, I really, really love that aspect of this. Just scrolling past real quick. I mean, the Bard is super underwhelming. RIP to the Bard NPC that this DM is playing. Major L. The Drow Mom, aka Drow Matron Mother. This was the best image I could find. I don't own that on D&D Beyond, so I couldn't grab the stat block, so I just had to pull one from Google Images. But this is, for the most part, accurate. Let me, okay, Drow Mom. Legendary creature, first and foremost. She is basically like Lolth is her patron. And she doesn't get the full treatment of spells. Huge L. I'm sorry. You know, they added the Divine Flame. So there's, I guess, I don't want to say balance there, but that's one thing, you know. But yeah, once again, though, if you look, you know, there's a slew of spells here. And it, to me, this list here is just extremely underwhelming. Very underwhelming. I mean, this doesn't even have as 1/7 level. And you can cast that twice a day. You get Gate once a day, so I guess that's fine in a way, sure. I don't know. Give her Darkness at will. I don't see it. Is there a Blade Barrier in this new list? Yes. You get that twice a day. She has 2 6th level slots, so okay. Same thing with Plane Shift. So it's not too far off, but I guess the main theme of these new changes is you remove some of those spells and then you give the creature a multi-attack. So, yeah. And tell me how this makes sense. It can make 2 Demon Staff attacks, or 1 Demon Staff and 3 Tentacle Rod attacks. That's the option you're always going to go with. So just say that instead. Because why wouldn't you want your creature, and this is if you're trying to make the encounter challenging. Some DMs, they don't really focus on battling or combat, and that's totally fine. And if this suits you, then go for it. But I like to make I like to test my players. We're all gamers, so I want them to strategize. I want them to be tactical. This kind of removes some of that. And as I said, why even put the 2 Demon Staff attacks in there as an option if the alternative is that they could use 1 Demon Staff and 3 Tentacle Rods? Fuck yeah, of course you're going to do that. Of course you're going to do that. You got a reach of 15 feet. So you could hit 1 and then ba 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 to 3 15 feet away from you. That's always going to be your option. Always. Unless you're going to cast a spell. But in reality, if I were running this encounter, I would do like Blade Barrier as my first turn to kind of maybe separate the group, and then on alternate or on sequential turns after that, barring I maintain concentration on Blade Barrier, make these multi-attacks. If I lose concentration on Blade Barrier, I might cast like Hold Person. But this is the other issue that I have with the new stat blocks. The old Matron Mother, if she wanted to cast Hold Person at 9th level and hold the entire group, that was her choice. She can't do that now with the new stat block. She can only cast it at the level that it's cast at. So you're only holding 1. It's kind of a waste of a concentration spell. That's why I said Blade Barrier. But if you lose concentration on Blade Barrier, then you may want to try to banish the strongest creature that maybe hit you the hardest. Unless there's like some underlying backstory or vendetta against a player, you would banish them, so on and so forth. Darkness is another spell. But my game plan would be Blade Barrier, multi-attack. And then, Summon Servant as a bonus action. Then my legendaries would be Compel that demon. Then the subsequent turn, I'm doing Lilith's Fickle Favor as a bonus action, multi-attack action, maybe throw 1 Divine Flame out there just to kind of set the tone and make everyone hurt real bad. So yeah, I get why they did all this, but I think the biggest gripe that I have is you now can't cast Hold Person at anything higher than the level it is. So that kind of bothers me. If I want to try to hold the entire group, I want to be able to do that. So I'm going to use the old stat block. It's that simple. I think I'm done with Drow Mom. I definitely think as far as her challenge rating goes, you know, she has the same hit points. Not much of her other stats have changed. Albeit the multi-attack changed. She gets the Divine Flame, which hits pretty hard. I mean, she did have a multi-attack initially as well. So I would keep the challenge rating fairly high. I would maybe make it 18 or 19 just because you don't have some of those spells. Now her spell DC did go up, so there is that. So yeah, I guess it's balancing out. I would keep her at a 20, I guess. Okay, enough of the Drow Mother. This is going to be the last example, and then we're going to kind of maybe show you some things that hadn't changed that I'm glad that didn't change. On to the Necromancer. This one pains me. All the wizards pain me. Because while they're not archmages, they're not some schlub. Like, these guys are very laughable. If you... I don't want to dwell too much on the other ones, but we'll scroll. You know, the Evoker, the Illusionist, the Transmuter. They're all a bit laughable, if you ask me. And why? Because we removed all of our spell slots. So, I've got the Necromancer old stat block to the right. And as you can see, their highest spell slot is a 6. Okay? And I told you to keep something in the back of your mind. Okay? It was the Arcane Bolt. The Wildfire attack. This Necromancer has an Arcane Burst. And it does deal necrotic damage, so that at least they did things like that, and it's not just force for everything. But first off, as a bonus action, you can cast Summon Undead once per day. That last line kills me. Or until the Necromancer dismisses it as a bonus action. And no way in hell the Necromancer is going to say, "Rise, zombie," and then 40 minutes later, they're going to be like, "You're good, bruh. I'll dismiss you as a bonus action." Not going to happen. So, more likely than not, the undead is going to die, or the Necromancer is going to die. That's it. Or it's going to flee and leave the zombie, because at the end of the day, a Necromancer is probably a shit, right? So, but at least they got Circle of Death, right? At least they got Circle of Death. Bestow Curse, I get. Dimension Door, I also get, because you want some sort of escape route. Here's the thing, though. If we're trying to minimize options, simplify combat, why would you give your DM, your Game Master, an option to cast Mage Armor twice when it lasts 8 hours? More likely than not, they're casting it at the top of the day when they wake up, and that's it. It's good for pretty much the rest of the day. So, what I would do instead is remove Mage Armor. Make it a given that it's cast. Make it a once per day thing. I get it that it's a low level spell, but maybe instead of Mage Armor, Shield. That's a great one. Here's the thing that I hate. Web. We're really going to use Web and not Blight? The old version. Look at the old version. It has 3 4th levels. So you got Dimension Door as one of them. Blight. Maybe make Blight once a day and Dimension Door twice a day. Also, give them Cloud Kill. It's very laughable and underwhelming. This stat block, this Necromancer, sure, it does 25 necrotic damage if it hits. But more likely than not, if they're in melee with something, they've got a high AC because they are like a paladin with fucking plate armor, or they're some crazy barbarian who has a 20 constitution, or they're a monk with like a fucking 22 wisdom and a 20 dexterity. So big L here for the Necromancer. Huge L. I would remove mage armor, replace that with shield. I would also remove web and replace that with cloud kill. Even ray of fucking enfeeblement. Something that's gonna make this, you're not seeing her, something that's gonna make this poor little necromancer scare someone. She, and I say she because she's there in that picture, but a necromancer doesn't even get animate dead. And the other problem I have with this summon undead, and nowhere does it say that it needs a corpse. And to me, that's just crazy. So do they just come out of the ground? She has these undead seedlings that just, she plants them and as a bonus action and they pop up out of the ground. Nah, man, that's not how this is supposed to work. It's like that Progressive or Geico commercial with those old ladies putting photos on their wall. That's not how any of this works.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
There is a trade-off, because animate dead lasts 24 hours, but it takes a minute to cast. Summon undead, you can do once a day, is done as a bonus action, and it creates 5, summons 5 undead, right? So there is a bit of balance tweaking that I see them doing here. The one thing is, you need corpses. I'm sorry. That's just me, but it's neither here nor there. And web? Come on. That's the epitome of an underwhelming necromancer spell. Come on, fam. Come on. You gotta hook the necromancer up a little more, but I guess my rant is done with the necromancer. I'm obviously going to use the old stat block, or I'm going to homebrew something. So the other thing that we need to consider here, I told you, keep this in the back of your mind. Arcane Bolt, Wildfire, Arcane Burst, as you see here in the new Necromancer stat block. Ranged spell attack. Does that mean that this is a spell? And if so, can it be countered? Begs the question, is the Arcane Burst a spell? And if it is, can it be countered? I would probably, if that question came up in my game, and someone said they were trying to counterspell the Arcane Burst, I would allow it. Because in this stat block, it says ranged spell attack. If someone wants to use a 3rd level spell to negate one of their attacks, yeah, I would allow it. So, just some things to consider. The other thing, before we get into what I'm glad they didn't change, is the actual use of counterspell. So you saw earlier on, the Alhoon had a negate spell ability. You can only do 3rd level or lower. Doesn't have counterspell. I actually went through the entire Monsters of the Multiverse book. Not a single creature, stat block, whatever, has counterspell. So that got me thinking, is counterspell even a viable option for a PC? And I would say yes and no. No, because more likely than not, the monsters that you're facing aren't countering your spells, and also they don't have a ton of spells to even cast. So maybe no. But alternatively, yes, big yes, because if they have less spells, that means you could really, as a player, be clutch and take out that one mega spell. Like if this Necromancer goes to cast Circle of Death and your wizard or sorcerer counters it, well, this Necromancer is fucked for the rest of the battle. So I still think it's a very good option to keep in your list of spells as a player. And I think it makes it even that more important and that more clutch, because the list of spells has been limited if you're running these new stat blocks. So now let's go to what they didn't change. So some things that they didn't change here is our good old friend the Lich, which, thank you Jesus, thank you everyone, the Lord, God, the Everlight, Asmodeus, even, thank you to everyone, Jeremy Crawford, Chris Perkins, thank you for not changing the Lich. Thank you. Why? Because this guy has made it his whole bag to be the baddest ass of spellcasters you could possibly be. So he needs a 9th level. He needs Power Word Kill. For sure. He needs Dominate Monster. He needs Finger of Death. Yeah, definitely. I'm so happy that they didn't alter this, and I'm also happy that they didn't alter the Archmage. Once again, this guy is at least an 18th level spellcaster. You could homebrew something and make him a 20th level. As I said about the Archdruid, the word arch gives him that S tier, that supreme status amongst mages. So, thank the gods that these creatures were not altered, their stat blocks were not altered. Once again, his options are very limited. But here's the thing. I know they're trying to simplify, they're trying to make it easier so you're not overwhelmed with a list of spells, and I get that. But if I am a DM, my game PC just turned on. Hold on. Stay hydrated, fam, please. Okay. I forgot that I had that PC on before. I was watching Critical Role on the big screen, and then I put it to sleep. And I guess my sister's dog woke it up. I don't know how. I don't know. Anyway. If I am running an encounter with a creature with a stat block that looks like this, that has a lot of options, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my homework. I'm going to come up with a few strategies. I might type up a cheat sheet, if you will. I'm going to print out this stat block, and I'm going to highlight certain spells that I'm going to go to at the very top of the encounter to really set the tone. I'm going to put an asterisk next to Counterspell, because I need to be reminded, like, hey, you got casters, you're going to want him to thwart some of that shit. You might want to make a little note next to teleport and say, escape plan at 60 hit points. If you have 5 players that can deal 30 hit points and they're all going before him, probably this guy's dead. So, yeah. Do your homework. Come up with a game plan. It's not that hard to do. And the best way to kind of do that is to maybe like run the encounter in your head, load up an encounter in D&D Beyond with your players, And this is what I do. If I'm afraid a creature might outright kill them, I may run a play test, and I will kind of act out what I think they would do. I pretty much know what my players like go-to moves are. So playtest is huge. Maybe get a bunch of friends that aren't in your main campaign but still like to play D&D, and preface it by saying like, hey, let's do like a crazy encounter. You might end up dying in this, but it'll be fun and you might come out on top. Do your homework is I guess what I'm trying to get at here. Come up with a game plan. That's the best possible option. Take notes. Write shit on this stat block to kind of guide you along what your choices are going to be in that upcoming battle. I mean, that's certainly what I do, and I guess the beauty of these new stat blocks is for the DM who wants to prep in other areas and not focus so much on combat or encounters. This publication is for you. My mind will not allow me to do that, and that's just the type of person I am. I've come to terms with that. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you're that kind of player too that likes to strategize and be tactical, or you want your players to be tactical, as long as they are okay with you running that kind of game, then go for it, I would say. But all in all, as we're wrapping this video up, I want to say the new publication is still a huge W. I'm not happy with certain aspects of it, but that doesn't mean that I don't like it overall. And as I said, I'm still going to buy these stat blocks in D&D Beyond. I'm definitely going to buy the Playable Races, because I think that was probably the biggest W of the entire publication. And who knows? I may get the book later on down the road. My bookshelf is cluttered right now, and I don't see myself referencing it as much as I would reference like the DMG or something as it's in my hand. So that is going to do it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you don't agree with me, I want to hear about it in the comments. If you do agree with me, I want to hear about it in the comments. Let me know what kind of game you run, or what kind of game your DM runs, what encounters you're looking forward to from this new stat block system, and let me know if you're gonna pick up the Monsters of the Multiverse. So if you've stayed till the end, I appreciate you guys. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe for future content, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.